Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 163.
If there's a way I can reconnect to myself, everybody's going to benefit, especially me, because I'm not going to step into my history and recycle what I saw people do.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Diana Zaheer. Diana is a past fire starter who was featured on podcast episode 146 and 156. She's also a veteran homeschooling mother of two and works with others on healing. Her family has worked and lived all over the world, as well as she has studied with top natural leaders as well. Diana, welcome back to the Luminous Mind.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
So this episode is going to be, hopefully, connect really well with our last discussion, which we had on the critical voice. And after looking over this healing room, I almost wish we would have started here with reactions, because to be candid with you and our audience, negative reactions is an area that I struggle in. So hopefully I'm getting better with some experience. But from my own personal experiences, reactions can make or break our relationships. If our reactions are positive, we can build those relationships better. But if they're negative, we can sometimes destroy relationships. So maybe we can start off with kind of building off our critical voice discussion of how does our critical voice play a part in our reactions?
Sure. This is a really important area, and I also have a passion for it, so I'm excited to talk about it also. Everybody has reactions. It's part of what happens to us on this human journey, and we often judge them. We think we're not supposed to have reactions. So in that one little element, we can see the critical voice jumps right in. As soon as we notice we're having a hard time, the critical voice tells us we shouldn't be having a hard time. But the truth is, everybody has moments where they're having a hard time. And so it's what we do with those moments that really helps us relax or get more stressed out. So that's what learning about reactions is in a nutshell. How to learn to be gentler, more open, more curious, and more of an observer in those moments when, for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time.
Well, and I love the fact that you relate it to that's how we all are wired, to have reactions, and that, we're not supposed to be somehow better than everyone else or somehow, not have that part missing from us. That's actually, how we were made, correct?
Well, it's part of the journey. It's part of understanding what it means to be a human being on this planet. Unless you were born as Jesus, unless you were a Buddha, your mind is going to function in a way where the feedback from this system is a reaction. Yeah. So it's part of the processor, just like we discussed last time, how the critical voice is something that gets developed in us as a result of being on this planet and being little and learning right from wrong and learning about safety. These little seeds of understanding and perception are part of what develops in us as we grow here on this planet. And reactions are the same thing. When something happens inside of me that's too much and I don't know what to do with it, I have a reaction.
Well, and I love what you were just talking about, as we grew and developed, we kind of developed this critical voice of what we heard around us. The same thing with our reactions, and that's why it's so important to work on it, is because, like we discussed before we started recording, that a lot of the lessons that our kids learn from us are caught, they're not taught. So working on those reactions of maybe what we learned from the past of how to react to certain things can help the future generations, correct?
Oh, yes. And I mean, that's the thing about learning in terms of what's happening inside of us and our reactions. It's like these ping pong balls are bouncing around our house all day long. So we have so much rich material just in a couple of hours with our family. There's so much there. Our buttons are being pushed. A trigger's here, a trigger's there. We love these people. We adore these people. And we're triggering them. They're triggering us. So if we want to use that as a learning ground, it's right there.
Yeah. Well, and with the reactions, too, it seems like many times we react to things differently with the people we love. I mean, sometimes we're more hurtful to them than we would be to somebody else. And then we're way more hurtful to ourselves than we would be to somebody else either, correct?
Well, of course, the more intimate the relationship, the closer the relationship, the more vulnerable we are. When we're out in the world, in the workplace, or we're meeting with colleagues, we're doing some project, there's more of a buffer. We may still get triggered by someone in those environments, but when we're home with our people, our hearts soften, our hearts open, or conversely, we have a lot more material there that's getting in the way of really being close to those people because we have unfinished business inside of us that comes out in reactions.
Definitely. So maybe we could start with giving definition of reaction. I mean, I'm sure it's not too difficult to decide what our conversation has been so far, but give us the definition of reactions.
Well, if I am feeling in a reaction, it means I am troubled, I am suffering, I'm confused, I'm overwhelmed. I don't understand what's happening for me in a given moment. In other words, I'm not rooted, I'm not grounded in feeling connected to who I really am inside, to my experience of the divine, however I experience that. I might feel like I'm off kilter, I'm off center. And then the people who are around me, I may let some of that energy come out onto them because I don't really feel like I can communicate well about how I'm feeling, what I need, what's happening for me, what support I require. And so I end up coming out sideways from what's really going on deep inside of me. One way to clarify a reaction is to look at the opposite of a reaction. When I'm not in a reaction, I feel very relaxed. I feel very peaceful. Things seem to fall into place effortlessly. I don't have to push myself. I notice this kind of order and harmony inside of me and outside of me. And I am comfortable wherever I am. Things can happen outside of me and I don't take it personally.
Yeah. So one of the things that you were discussing with reactions, is it possible, I mean, when you said that, you can be, you're feeling off center and something like that, what if you're feeling like you're very grounded and balanced? And maybe we should go into that of what, I mean, you kind of discussed that, of what that feels like, but when we feel kind of grounded and balanced, we're calmer, we have a softer feeling about ourselves, correct? Is that?
Of course. Well, if I'm feeling in sync with myself and I'm feeling balanced and I'm having an excellent hour or an excellent afternoon or maybe even an excellent day, there's this sense of flow. I'm noticing my needs. I may be incorporating self-care into my day. I may have practices I like to do. I'm eating foods that really work for my body. I'm exercising. There's just a sense that all is well. And that is the deepest truth of who we really are. When we connect with that, there is this pervading sense that all is well. It's not connected to any one thing happening or any one person. There's just this sense of pervasive well-being. And I'm a part of that. That is me. I am that.
And so you have gratitude. You feel kind of gratitude, too, for things you have.
Gratitude is such a wonderful tool, and it's a great way to return to that ground. I especially like gratitude as a nighttime tool as we look back on our day and just appreciate all these ways that we are experiencing goodness. So gratitude is a great anchor if that's something we do as part of our day. So we watch ourselves return to this sense of, this is me. Like it's your Rebecca-ness, it's my Diana-ness. It has a flavor of what's happening on this planet, but it's coming through me. So if I'm starting from that point and things are happening outside of me that might ruffle me in another time or space, it's like there's more buffer, there's more flow. I just realize, wow, that person's having a hard time, but I'm over here in this inner harbor that I am nurturing. I'm over here in this sanctuary. And whatever is happening inside of me comes out of me. So if I'm feeling peaceful with myself and toward myself and in general, when I interact with other people, what's likely to come out of me is peace. Or if I'm feeling a lot of warm-heartedness towards myself and love, what's likely to come out of me towards them is peace, love, relaxation.
If your reactions are more negative, it may be just from the fact that you're not grounded, correct? I mean, you're not doing those things that help you feel like more whole.
Right. So this is where it starts. The Sufi poet Rumi talks about how the pot boils what is in it. So if love is in me and peace is in me and I'm feeling really good in my self-care, that's what's bubbling out of me. But if I'm having a hard time and I'm stressed or I'm depleted or I'm feeling behind the eight ball and I'm trying to catch up and my kids need this, my house needs that, what about this school project? If I'm already starting from a depleted place, I'm going to feel stressed out. My critical voice is probably swooping around me, telling me how deficient I am, and I may be believing it. And then what happens is that's what comes out of me. I may be grumpy. I may shoot a critical voice attack out at someone. I may be really tired and not even know I'm tired. So the limitation in me is what I share with other people.
Well, let's talk about that transformation of our reactions, of how we can get to that peaceful place, of having ourselves be grounded and feel grounded and then, help transform those reactions.
Yes, that's the great news about reactions. We start there and then we transform them. They are not set in stone. We have this wonderful ability to learn and move and shift. And so we just start right where we are with the reaction and we work with it. If we push the reaction away, if we judge ourselves for having a reaction, we won't shift. We'll get even grumpier. We'll get even more stressed out and our relationships will feel even more disconnected. But if I start with the fact that I am in a reaction, windows and doors can open up just from the very place of acknowledging, wow, I think I'm having a hard time right now.
Well, and I love we talked about a lot in our critical voice discussion of how, when we finally acknowledge what we're feeling inside, it does give us a chance to help us fix it, to try to become grounded back to where we need to be to have those reactions transform. So really the first key is to just acknowledge it, correct?
That's right. To give yourself a chance to look inside and see what's really going on without any judgment, and just to see, wow, this is me right now. Here's where I am. It's easier to do that away from people, especially if we're in the heat of stress with others and the reactions are happening on both sides. If I can separate myself for a minute, just have a cup of tea or just sit quietly and go inside with a kind of warm-heartedness. Gosh, it seems like I might be having a really hard time right now. Or sometimes there's a trusted friend, and sharing with that person and letting them know what's going on with us, it helps us witness ourselves. Even if the other person only listens and doesn't give feedback, we imagine them witnessing us the way we would witness ourselves, because most of us are extremely hard on ourselves.
But when we actually talk with a friend, then maybe we would see ourselves in a different light, correct? Especially if it's a friend that we can trust with those feelings and emotions.
Yes, if we have a friend who is a deep listener and a gentle listener, it can bring in that missing compassion that's happening for us. Or even if we imagine another person isn't available right then, if we imagine that what's happening inside of us were happening to a good friend, just removing it one step brings about more gentleness in our heart. Like imagine your good friend was having the stress you're having, had all the things piling up on them that are piling up on you. You would relate to them with so much more softness than you relate to yourself most of the time.
Well, I love the idea of putting a feeling, kind of separating it. I talked with a friend recently, and we were taught to put it in a backpack. You know, we know it's part of us, we acknowledge it, and sometimes we can put it in a backpack and it's there and we're carrying it, but yet it's not necessarily something that causes us to react.
Can you say more about that?
Well, the idea that if we acknowledge that it's there and we know we're carrying it, then it doesn't become part of our reactions, that it becomes like we understand it, that the depression or the anxiety or the frustration may be there, and we acknowledge it, but we take it out of ourselves and put it in a backpack.
Sure.
We kind of laugh about it, because my friend and I talk sometimes when we're putting it in a backpack, you know, it sounds funny, but it really is a way to help you kind of separate that feeling from yourself.
Yes, I see that. That's a nice visual. I had a teacher who once talked about imagining a little waterfall starting at the top of your head, and that this water is just going down the back of your head and then coming back up in the front of your face and going back down, and all these thoughts are moving in the water and all these emotions and all these feelings. And if there's something that's really triggering us, like a reaction, and getting in the way of our functioning and our ability to perceive what's going on, we can just put it in the waterfall and just let it keep flowing around. It's not going to go anywhere. We can get there. We can spend time with it when we have the presence of mind, when we have, a chunk of time to sit quietly with ourselves or with a friend. But if we let it keep flowing around instead of stopping full center in front of our perception and our decisions and our communication, it's when it becomes the main screen that we use to interact with life. That's when the stress really increases. But like the backpack or the waterfall, it's like, okay, I'm in a reaction. It's there. There's this sensitive part of me, and I'm just going to hold it with gentleness, and I'm going to sit with it in a couple of hours or this evening when I can really be present with myself.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to acknowledge that time will help us with that, right? Like sometimes dealing with it in the moment is not just to be able to acknowledge it, but when we know that it's there, we're flowing. You were describing exactly what we do with the backpack thing, is that, if we flow it, it's there, it's flowing through us, but we've acknowledged it, and we can be able to move on. We can still move forward because it's great.
That's an excellent point you're making. And I have this policy with myself that I have done trial and error for years on. If I'm upset about something, if a reaction has really triggered me, I will not communicate. I will not open my mouth because there's so much in that moment. And if I get in the middle of it and react with my words, I lose the teaching there. I discharge it. So if I realize, wow, something's really triggering me right now, I'm going to make a decision to either take a few minutes and go relax with myself, or I'm going to somehow buffer this situation so I don't spew my reaction out at the other person. Because I don't want to hurt them and I don't want to damage the relationship, but I also don't want to miss the nugget that's in there for me.
Yeah, something to learn from, correct? Right. So let's kind of talk about how the reactions, because we've mostly been talking about, if we're having a reaction within ourselves, how to help change that. But how do we deal with the reactions of others? How do we handle reactions? Because that can bring out reactions in us, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have an example you want to use
Well, let's say
from another person?
Yeah, let's say that one of your children
From another person?
Yeah, let's say that one of your children is having a hard time with something, is kind of throwing a temper tantrum, or yelling, or doing some of those really negative things. How do we handle that with them?
That's a great example, because we can all relate to those moments, right? We've got like the young child version and the teenage version.
Yeah.
We could even talk about the husband version, but we'll leave the husband part separately for right now. But say it's a child, right? Say it's a relationship with someone in our family we're really close to. So if we're honest, none of us wants that, right? We love harmony. We love it when life is really flowing well and everybody's getting what they need and there's happiness and our hearts feel light and happy. So we can notice that there may be these really subtle ways we experience sensations in our hearts when a reaction happens in our family, depending on our own history growing up. It may make us sad. It may make us scared. It may make us embarrassed. It may mean I'm a bad mom if my child's having a reaction. So we bring a lot of content to a moment like that, even before a reaction happens. And then there's the specific situation with the child that may trigger us. They may be in pain. They may be angry at us. They may be really tired. They may be really hungry. So all of the particular content can trigger us. But the simplest way to start is when a child that you adore and love and give your life for every day as a homeschooling parent, when that child is having a hard time, the first question I ask myself is, okay, here's what's happening. Is this hard for me, this moment, or do I feel present? I feel like I'm okay with it. That's the starting place. It's like one of those flow charts where it's like answers yes, answers no, right? There's no judgment, but if I feel comfortable in myself, if I feel really here with myself and my child is having a hard time, that's very different from my child's having a hard time and I just got really triggered by that.
That is. Well, and I like the asking the question. I think some of the things that we do with our reactions is that we move too quickly, correct? I mean, sometimes taking the deep breath, letting out some...
It's instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
These weapons are flying fast and frenzied all around our house, like boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
But if we can do something to slow down the reaction just within ourselves, that would help a lot in de-escalating their reaction, correct?
Yeah. So we have a job. This is a new job in that moment. It's a kind of witnessing presence. It's a kind of neutral observer that is part of our capacity just being on this planet. So it's something we can grow. If it feels like something we don't really know about ourselves, we can become new friends with it. Or if we already have some ability to witness ourselves, we can grow this. And so we're still noticing the child. We're still noticing what's going on for them. And we're also observing us. Like, okay, how is this moment for me? Is this really hard for me? Is it middle ground? Or do I feel like I want to run out the door? We can see where we are in response to that child, but just in here with me and me.
So it goes back to acknowledging their reaction. I mean, we talked about in the beginning of acknowledging our reaction, but first of all, you have to acknowledge that they're having a reaction and then how you're feeling about that.
Exactly. My child is having a hard time right now. Like, that is what I see. That is happening. I can't change that in this moment. It's already occurred. My child is having a hard time. That can be hard, just noticing that. But that's part of what is manifesting in that moment. My child is having trouble.
Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Recently, the Luminous Mind became an affiliate for EduSense, which offers tremendous discounts on educational supplies. I personally use EduSense to purchase our family supplies because of their great prices, responsive shipping times, and best of all, the chance to earn EduBucks, which I use towards future purchases. Who doesn't love a great deal within a deal? To get a 90% savings on your EduSense materials, go to theluminousmind.net and click on the sponsor page to find the affiliate link. Start using EduSense to illuminate your educational experience. Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Diana Zaheer on making peace with our reactions. Okay, so let's decide two factors. Let's say, first of all, if you're okay, you've acknowledged they're having a reaction, and you're okay with handling that. How do you proceed with that situation?
Right. So first of all, I'm grateful, right, that I can be present. And so it's an experiential kind of thing too, right? If I feel really present with my child when my child's having a hard time, what that means is there's still a kind of evenness in me. There's a peacefulness. I feel like I'm inhabiting my body. I feel like I can listen to them and witness them, and I don't take it personally what they're saying. And so naturally what arises in me is curiosity, like, wow, I wonder what this child needs right now. I wonder what I can do to help that child feel more peaceful in themselves. And so there's like a natural arising of a response in us to connect with our child, to see them as a separate being on the journey of being a human. And what can I do to help them get more grounded? We may feel guidance coming in. We may feel more space to suggest things to them. Sometimes a child just needs to be held when they're having a reaction. Even though they may look like they want to fight with us, sometimes that child just wants to be physically held and feel our presence, and it can diffuse the situation.
Oh, yes. That response alone does a lot to diffuse that. Well, and then let's talk about if we have assessed the situation and we realize that we're not in a very good state of mind ourselves to be able to handle that. I mean, when they're little, when my children would throw a fit and I would like, okay, I can't, I would actually take them and put them in their room so that I didn't react on them. What do you do with older?
Yeah.
Give us some ideas of, younger versus older versus.
Yeah. So as you said, if I notice this is hard for me, if I notice this moment is too much for me, that's a really big deal to notice that. So the first thing is just to appreciate that I'm growing myself that way. As you were mentioning before, when we're not able to do that, and this happens to everybody, it's part of learning. It's not food for the critical voice, but everybody has a moment where they get unbalanced and they say something and they wish they hadn't, or they realize they didn't really have the ability to listen to their kids. They were just defending themselves or trying to figure out some way to appear big.
Yeah, shaming, like you use it to shame.
Shaming can happen. So many, we're recycling the tools we watched our parents use or we watched teachers use. We try to do it all by ourselves. And when we catch ourselves doing that and we step back, it's like, okay, you know what? I didn't have access to anything else. I did the best I could. So what we're looking at is another tool. If I realize I'm super overwhelmed in that moment and I give myself permission to acknowledge that, it opens up a bunch of new options, not just recycled tools, recycled ways we watched other adults try to cope when they were overwhelmed. So the first thing I can do is choose not to do anything. Our critical voice will say that's really weak. You should do something to show you're strong. But if I know I'm in a reaction and I'm going to take a minute, make it look like whatever it's going to look like, go to the bathroom, go get a drink of water, go stand outside on the porch and take a deep breath. If there's a way I can reconnect to myself, everybody's going to benefit, especially me, because I'm not going to step into my history and recycle what I saw people do.
Well, and I think, especially if your reactions have been not so good in the past, I found that when I do that with my children now, or they know that this would be something that would normally set me off, when I leave, talk about power, all of a sudden they are like, they've already worked it like, oh, wow. I mean, they've already accepted what's going on with my reaction of leaving the situation versus lashing out at them. And that is a strength already.
It's a huge strength. And they watched us make the decision to reset ourselves. And I see this especially with teenagers. When they get that little break, because they can't take the break themselves yet, they still have that teenage mind. But when we take that break, it gives them the space to reset themselves. If we start engaging with them from this more horizontal, reactive, energetic state, we will get stuck in this narcissistic nest where both sides are trying to get the other side to see each other.
Power struggle.
It's just a no-win situation. Exactly. Power over each other, right? And teenagers, they love to tell us, you're not listening to me. And at some level, if I'm in a reaction, I can't really hear them. So this idea of taking a moment of space to connect to who I really am, it's hugely beneficial. It can be so hard to do that because our children, they develop this ability to push our buttons in such a way where it really hooks us. And blame is a great way. If there's a way they tell us we're not doing what they need us to do, or we're not enough, or, there's a way that the reaction comes and it's so juicy and we just want to step into the ring. But that movement of, I'm just going to take a moment and reset myself, it's a very vertical choice energetically. If I am feeling connected to myself and in my body and rooted to the ground and available to the divine, my experience of myself is very, very vertical. If I enter the ring with the other person and engage in my reaction, the energy in the room becomes very horizontal. It's very hard to extricate myself from something that begins sticky and then just gets stickier and stickier. And at the end, everybody feels terrible inside.
Yeah, it hasn't helped solve the problem, even though you have asserted that power or whatever. So
exactly. The problem remains, the dynamic remains, the repetitive behavior remains, and it'll just kind of lay there until it gets triggered again.
Those are great. Great advice. I just realized, too, that I'm having so much fun talking to you. I want to get on to some other stuff, too. I'm hoping that we've covered everything with our reactions to others, of acknowledging it, stepping back, and then being able to revisit it in a calm. Because we're not saying that you just walk away and you never work on things as a family, but to do it at a less reactionary time.
I think you walk away and you make a choice based on the situation and the needs of the situation. What do I need to do right now? What is the most important thing I need to respond to? And how can I do that from my most present, my most grounded self? And is there something deeper here for me or for the relationship I have with this person that I need to inquire into? And I can do that at another time where it's not so pressurized.
Exactly. Well, great. Well, there were a couple questions on this particular room that I wanted to talk about and get your feedback on them. I just love the wording of them. The first one is, what if a benevolent field of energy surrounded us all the time and was ready to respond to us by manifesting positive energy blocked in our system? Let's talk about that one and what you mean by that. Benevolent field is obviously something from the divine, right? Which we talked about before, something from whatever way that you believe you were created, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that is so crucial to me about what we understand about ourselves. We all live really busy lives. And as homeschooling parents, we are spending our energy in such a variety of ways every day. We're helping our children with daily life skills. We're cooking for them. We're cleaning our homes. We're making sure everybody is getting educated. We're doing fun activities. There's just a lot here. And so we want to do our best. We want to show up and be this force for good and love in our families. And we get tired. And we kind of stop in the sense of remembering what's going on a deeper level. We're so busy with the everyday activities and the conventional things that are going on. And then you add in things like elections and relatives and holidays. There's a lot to keep our attention busy. But when we can be reminded that there is something deep down inside each and every single one of us, and it is there all the time, and it is waiting for us to become more available, and it wants to participate in our daily lives, and it is the ground of this goodness and love and peace and intelligence. And so when we begin to taste it, not just think about it as a concept, but through our moments of having self-care or having practices that help connect us to the divine, or having a huge moment like I didn't react to that person in my family, that is a massive victory. It makes us more open. It makes us more available to directly and viscerally experience the sensations of this relationship, of this goodness.
That's great. Well, and this other question, I think it kind of sounds the same, but I think it's different in a way because some reason I thought that it could help us, especially as homeschooling parents, of the energy that we have in our home. But this is the question. Mm-hmm. What if we were wired as human vessels to receive this positive energy from the divine, the more we felt relaxed inside and allowed our experience to simply be? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? Is that kind of the same thing, like creating that positive energy in your home and being able to receive, from what I'm getting from your other description, is basically like we have like this amazing power from us, but we keep so busy that we block that inspiration that might come to help us be better people or to better fulfill our mission. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to fulfill our mission, like you're saying. We don't even know we're doing this because we're all sincerely and genuinely doing the best we can. So this is like a new relationship that is possible inside ourselves. And for a lot of people, they may have moments of that when they're quiet, when they're having some kind of reflection or worship or meditation. Like they know what it is to become really still, to feel that deepening, to feel that connectedness to something bigger than ourselves. It happens for some people when they're hiking, when they're listening to beautiful music. But it's knowing this deep peace, this deep wellness inside. And so the work on reactions, it's this great opportunity to use the moments of daily life as a way to remind ourselves, you know what, there's more going on here right now than this emotional outburst or this stress. Like that ground of who I am, that goodness, that intelligence, that guidance, that strength, it's actually in here, in me, right now, in this room, while my child is upset. And even if I can't feel that, just to have some virtual picture of that or some reference point that that's true, it opens up parts of us. It softens us. It gives us another dimension to have with us in the room.
Well, and I love the idea, some of the things that you had talked about as far as the energy that we have that's blocking that system. You know, let's kind of finish the discussion out with how we can create. I mean, you listed things like, you know, taking a walk or, you know, some of those things that we can do to get ourselves kind of more grounded and back to that relaxed feeling of just simply being. You know, let's talk about what kind of energy, how to create that better energy in our home. Listening to good music. I mean, we kind of mentioned some things, but
I think whatever each person finds to add to their day, whatever that is, and it can change by the day, whatever you can bring into your day that makes you feel like you're giving to yourself, that makes you feel lighter inside. So it might be certain fabrics in your home that when you sit down for a moment and you touch this throw that's on your couch or this pillow, you feel your body relax. It might be certain visuals that you have in your home. It might be certain smells. It might be certain sounds. We can make those choices. We're really good at making those choices for other people, but to make those choices for ourselves, we're so good at creating home for our families. We're so good at giving them the food they enjoy, or taking them shopping, or buying them the pajamas that feel just right, or getting the right blankets on their beds. We're taking this ability we have with our attention and turning it on ourselves for a moment. I had this one teacher who used this visual of a car. It's as if we're all these cars with these big headlights, and they're so well developed, and they face outwards. This light, this attention, this capacity to help problem solve and bring goodness and heal. We do that for the people in our families, in our worlds all day long. This is a way that we're taking a moment and we're turning these amazing headlights just onto us, just to give ourselves that same loving, patient, creative attention onto me just for a minute. And we might have a lot of beliefs about that. We might have a lot of judgments about that, saying it's selfish. We talked about this last time about selfish wisdom. The truth is, when I give to myself, even if I do it for a few minutes every day, I exponentially benefit everybody in my world. And my children notice, and my partner notices, and I am growing the happiness in my home. For some people, they may have certain traditions of being close to the divine that really make them feel so happy. And yet maybe they do that once a week. Maybe they do that only when they're really stressed out. So we can up the ante here. We can sit in the morning and do something that really speaks to our soul. Maybe it's music, maybe it's reading, maybe it's a prayer, maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's a sitting, maybe it's a walking. But I'm plugging myself in to this peace, to this love, to this goodness, to this higher vantage point, this high watch that I love. And every time I do that, my heart grows and I have more to give my family.
Yeah. Well, and that light comes from within, correct? I mean, it comes in and then flows out to the other people because you've got that positive energy flowing through you, and so then it comes out in a better reaction. One of the things I did want to kind of talk about is that, we were talking about the headlights and how they're pointed out towards other people. It seems like when we point them back at ourselves and we start asking those questions of where am I struggling and what do I need help with, what do I need to do, that light can become very blaring. I think that's why we don't do that, because it hurts sometimes, to have to focus that light back on yourself. It's kind of like the headlights are blinding you, and that's painful and stuff. But as we do it longer and more often, it softens and then it flows up and out, correct?
We can be really hungry for this attention and really tired and feel like we're so disconnected. So when that light shines on us, as you said, it might feel really startling. And it might initially come at us as the critical voice because that's the way we're used to talking to ourselves. So it has to go really slowly, this change. It's a very gentle beginning. I like to use this image of like your baby toenail, the teeniest, tiniest part of your baby toenail dipping into a pond for a second. Like, we don't have to rush this. We don't have to make a big example of something. It's just teeny little visits with ourselves. Really sweet, really lovely, really gentle. Because we live in a world that's very fast-paced and very demanding. And we know how to do that. We know how to push ourselves. So this has a completely different flavor. It's a moment of sitting down and just dropping in for a moment so it feels good. That's it.
Well, and really that's a simpler way of doing it. Sometimes we want to fix everything at once, and that's when the light blinds us. But if it's just a small little light here and there until we can handle the full brightness, then I think, we do make some headway.
And it's cumulative. Every time I take a moment like that, and my mind will say, 5 minutes, that's not going to make a difference. Go cook dinner, right? That's fine. Mind chatter is there because it's helped us in difficult situations. But that's where it gets to be a human science experiment. See what happens if you take the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
See what happens if you do something that nurtures yourself and then go cook the dinner. See how it feels to cook the dinner after you were so loving with yourself.
That's great. Well, and let's kind of end with where we can spend that 5 minutes is obviously a great place to go would be your reaction room. Tell us what maybe some of your favorite parts on there are, and then also give us your contact information, how our guests can find that.
So yes, on my website, which is dianazaheer.com, there are so many different healing rooms where you can go in, nobody will know you're there, completely private and anonymous, and you can just go into the space that really touches you. And you'll know it touches you because you feel lighter, you feel softer, you feel safer. I think a great room for these 5 minutes that you give yourself, I really like to go into the meditation room sometimes, because there are days you may not want to just be by yourself. You want to get quiet, but you want somebody there with you. And this room is full of beloved teachers who are all extremely gentle and very present, very spacious, very vast and loving. And you can spend 5 or 10 minutes getting quiet in yourself when you're accompanied by one of these master teachers. It's a wonderful way to give something to yourself.
Well, I think if we need to step back, if we're not feeling grounded, it's definitely a good place to go to kind of get a little bit of help if we need to. So that's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for once again joining us and helping to light our minds on fire.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Diana Zaheer, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.